Rooks is Fun here with another episode of Mindful Drawing. Welcome, and I'll be your guide as we work through a meditation on lightness and balance through the creative expression and the act of drawing. The Mindful Drawing series looks at how we bring attention and awareness to our interface with some way of communicating or just working through ideas, in this case, drawing. How moving our body moves the pen or pencil, engages with the paper, and then creates some form of expression there in this complex interaction between breathing, pressure, flow, and guidance from our eyes, from our visual senses, from the metaphors that float behind our vision and help us encapsulate things we've experienced in the world. This week we'll kind of pick up where we did some exercises a few weeks back on looking at tension within the curve of constructing a weighted flow that brings this balance of interaction between something heavy pulling in a direction and something light resisting that to make a productive and open tension in a space. Something akin to plants and their growth, the rooting bringing a heaviness and extending lightly upwards in order to fan out and accept the light, to interface with the world in a gentle, adaptable flow through those curvilinear extensions of life, reaching out there into the world. I'm going to work with pen and ink today, but feel free to grab anything you like: pen, pencil, charcoal, finger paints. It all provides an interface that you can use to enter into that space of greater awareness in the present moment, soothe into a space of relaxation and meditation on the concept here today of lightness and balance, and then extend that space outwards into the creativity on the page and hopefully beyond into whatever you get up to today. So grab a pad of paper, a pen and pencil, and let's draw together. Thinking back a few weeks ago, we looked at drawing some kind of expressive weighted curves, and we could take that a little more softly and separate from the technique and look at a meditation through drawing on a lightness and a balance in the curve, and let that maybe unfold into some flowing abstract kind of flower plant conditions, since they tend to present that light tension and balance in the form they create as they grow. So for the warm-up and introduction to kind of the action of drawing, we'll begin with finding that smooth flow of a curve that may have just a bit of whimsy or wisp to it, something held to a starting point, grounded in a way, reaching out or extending from that ground, slightly pulled by a gravity or force in some direction, but with the gentle resistance to that to create a wisp, create an extension, or flow out. And they don't all need to come from directly down at the bottom. They can flow in from above, finding that different weightedness in the control of our curve, something smooth, wrapping, maybe even lightly straight, a little heavy at one end, perhaps a little light at the other, as it must reduce its mass and heaviness from where it begins in its resistance to where it trails off in fineness. Once you have a sense of that flow to the curve, maybe a bit of shape or interest coming, something we've seen and imagined from trees or little plants, grasses, always kind of the same, reaching up, but then slightly different due to the wind and whatever's around them. I'm going to begin on a fresh blank page and just populate it kind of lightly with a few of those curves. For myself, I think I'll draw from my position outwards, things growing in an up direction relative to me from some general starting or anchoring area on the page, and just exploring what I found in that warm-up, maybe with a couple of little clusterings, giving plenty of room on the page for the curves to move and explore. They can cross and interact. Light density of a balanced distribution to begin the next part of the play with. First, a grounding as we come to our breath and focus there on the space with a few curves to mark the page. The heavy end, the starting end, or the grounding end, beginning to feather it further out to let the ink bring weight, to take a breath in and fill the space of our lungs and body, and let that ease out through a shorter, more controlled stroke. Something bringing root or mass expansion with each breath in, finding location and letting it gently out as you exhale with the motion of the drawing, bringing the embodiment of the breath into that expression on the page. Each breath a new micro pathway, tying the extending curves into their space, and tying ourself into the awareness of our body through the breath, through the coordination of that filling of our space, capturing a moment and then exhaling with motion to form figure here on the page. A balance of the technique, the repetition, and that gentle control of rhythm or timing in our breath. Not letting it get too heavy, too slow, or run away too fast, become bulky in our motion and on the page. We're looking for a balance in between, a lightness through our attention and awareness of many things happening together, approaching the synchronization towards the one moment of expression, drawing onto the page. And as each curve finds its rooting or grounding there in the space through the breath, we can explore further along the trajectory and perhaps provide a few small extensions or branches, little offshoots from that breathing cycle. maybe smoothing it out a little, finding the in-between from those short, thickening roots to the long, shaping, forming branch, to these medium space occupying wisps. If the breathing is settled into a even, relaxing pace that you can allow to fall into the background to keep supporting your motion, your oxygenation, and the rhythm of the body's motions, you can begin to play a bit with the speed of your drawing. Faster, lighter whips, slower, more defining, heavier things, some drifting into background, others projecting their weight into the foreground, again providing that opportunity or search for some balance in tone, in heaviness and value. As we spend a few minutes early on occupying that space we created with our breath and our motion, filling in an evenness with the flow, and letting our visual senses develop an awareness of the balance of the page. If things begin to feel too dense or too heavy, moving to a new area, or bringing emphasis or attention to different regions through flowing over or extending, or even adding no whole new trajectories into the space. A couple of minutes of free contemplation and entering into you and the act of drawing. In this time of creating, of having some influence over the space on the page, that each moment of action and mark that you make is an exercise in that presence and awareness to your interface with the paper, to the potential outcomes of an action that you take, and a gradual guidance visually, compositionally, to the feel of the space on the paper, a deepening of reaching in to that balance between intention and outcome, finding a lightness that allows for the vision of expression and also the space of exploration. I'm going to transition from the drawing of these extensions, branches, and curves into finding moments of expression or pop out from the form, looking at the ends of filigree and subtle branching out, providing an emphasis in the form perhaps of a dot or a circle or a shape that lightly extends and emphasizes those moments of termination to the curve, the fading out, reappearing, with just a gradual accumulation of graphite or ink. In each moment you begin to define across the field of the page, bringing your awareness into forming that emphasis. How are you moving the pen? Clockwise, counterclockwise, centered and expanding, or filling inwards. Perhaps each one a little different, or honing in on a repetition, like accounting for the meditation. Account in the times of circling the pen or pencil in coordination with the breath. Drawn into the 8 count, which each exhale aligns with 8 revolutions, forming that little spot of gravity or weight on the page. Whatever number, regular or sporadic, using it as a place of attention. We can give it guidance or let it guide in the moment there, as some amount of deposition of material and medium may just feel right in the motion, in the exercise. And to begin to look for ways, as those have filled in a good density spread around the page, to kind of draw them back in or capture them back into the branch. Maybe a light loop, the tip of a peacock's feather, just holding them from floating away from the light end of the branch. That optimization in a plant's growth of cells, gathering, finding a perfect tension between gravity and extension, finding a way to lighten towards the end, to balance rigidity and flexibility, and using some of that as inspiration for the meditation and the drawing of the way you connect, perhaps balance things visually, find evenness in your motion, use the repetition to enter a space of awareness and attention to the details of your act. And with that awareness and lightness and balance, perhaps gradually letting it drift out into relaxation, into the space you're creating here on the page. Layers of reading, layers of action, layers of remapping what you are aware of here and now, just in the moment of creativity, play, and exploration. And what might you see or find now in these loops? Are they berries, flower petals, cat's tails, or extensions? Letting that space you've opened up through the drawing, the accumulation of all of this material, guide you so you might find new shape or flow. For me, a kind of extending of the curve, that opening up of space, similar to something like the petals of a flower unfurling lightly, or the thin extension of leaves, capturing light, capturing our vision, and covering out into space. That final extension and expression of lightness growing from a base, growing from something rooted and grounded into that optimized balance with gravity, with form. Appreciating a bit of how that creates an expression of visual interest or beauty that we find in nature, in its existence outside of us, inside of us. Present, just to be. And let these extensions fill space, provide a backdrop to the empty page, creep into the foreground, and just fill into the background. Each similar expression of that moment at the end of the extension, lightly expanding, taking up a little space. You can use the last 5 minutes or so to continue filling in that area, continue occupying some of the space, or if it's getting full, going in deeper, diving into each unique territory and looking for it within it some further expression, inspiration, thickening, an unfolding of those localized densities. If you're working with pencil, maybe some light shading. With pen, perhaps some contouring or filigreeing to provide density. spending a few moments in any place you locate your pen or pencil, reading and working with its found characteristics, its interaction between the motion and act of your body, the paper's texture, the pen or pencils, the position of material. Synchronizing all of these aspects that we can use for exploring the creative act in drawing. You'll just draw a few moments together in the space of quiet and exploration. As we begin to close out our practice, the session together, finding awareness and relaxation through the creative expression of drawing here, you spend a few moments either continuing to draw or just sitting with the drawing you've created and contemplating or meditating on where finding moments of balance that can help with a lightness might come into your day, might come into your routine, or just serve in bringing some ease to situations that require our focus, attention, hard effort, maybe stressful. If we can have some both firm, flexible rooting and extension and unfurling to be present in many ways to adapt and work through whatever the situation might bring. Maybe a few deep breaths and rolls of the shoulders. Just come back into an awareness of where you are and what else is around you before you disengage from the drawing space and reach out there into whatever else you're doing today. As we transition from this space of meditation and drawing into whatever lies next in our day, we can take a few moments just to reflect over what we've seen, to allow our eyes to gaze through the space and objects we've created, to flow over the curves and dance between the pads of the flowers and petals of the leaves, filling in a forest from our imagination, from our technique, and from our space of awareness onto this blank piece of paper. In just those short 20 minutes or so, we find creativity. Whatever you found there, whether it's your masterpiece of the week flowing out onto the paper, or just a few scribbles dancing around, giving you some time to slow down, to calibrate your breath with your action, and to find a little bit of adaptability and flow in that meditation of lightly balanced drawing. I hope you've enjoyed the journey, and if you do, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, tell me how you did. What was it like going through these meditative practices while listening, drawing, and being present in action and in mind? What kind of space do you find and define on the page? Share your drawings with your friends, encourage them to come join us either Tuesday mornings live in Zoom via Mindful Prat, or find new episodes every Wednesday that you can browse through and use as a start to the day to invigorate creativity, or as a way to wind down in the evening to find some relaxation and self-time. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for joining. This is Rooks is Fun signing off. Draw well.